Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live from the Ranch. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. My name is Ken Ramirez, and I'm here at the barn, here at the ranch in Washington State. And my co-host today, like every month, is Juliana DeWillems of JW Dog Training and Behavior in the Washington, D.C. area. Hi, Juliana. How are you doing today?
Hey, Ken, I'm great. I was thinking before this, wow, it feels like it's been forever. And it has been forever because we skipped July. So I
We
haven't
did.
seen you in 2 months. And you've been busy since we last saw you. You've been traveling, huh?
I have been traveling. I took a little time off and kind of enjoyed the weather, sort of. It was very hot, but I traveled through the southwest part of the country, went to a bunch of different national parks and got to see some really cool things, and just got back Wednesday. Yes, 2 days ago. Yesterday was
Wow.
my first day back in the office. So, but you're right. Not only that, we took because it was the 4th of July around the time that our normal broadcast takes place. We decided to take the month off. Did you have a good 4th of July? Have you had a good couple of months since I haven't seen you in a while?
I did. It's been hot and I haven't done any traveling like you have, though I got excited because I saw did you guys launch the Clicker Expo
We did.
session list?
Yes, we did. We sort of made the announcement about both our virtual and in-person Clicker Expo. I'll probably talk about it later on in the broadcast, but we're really excited. We have a great lineup of speakers. We have some wonderful new things that we're doing this year. We've got some speakers we've never had before, and then of course we've got some of our favorite speakers back. We've got you coming back to speak at Clicker Expo, both Clicker Expos this year, so it should be a lot of fun.
I was eagerly awaiting the lineup, and man, yeah, very, very cool. It was cool to go through each session and see what was new and what looks like something that I've never heard before. So I was very excited to see that drop.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that a lot of people who are familiar with Clicker Expo will come back this year because of the fact that there's so many new speakers, and returning speakers are doing some really cool new topics, which is going to be fun. Speaking of new topics, I'm kind of excited about today's broadcast because we're going to be talking about protected contact, and we're going to talk about protected contact beyond just working with exotic animals in a zoo or an aquarium, but we're going to talk about some of the benefits of protected contact, just with any animal you work with, even with our own dogs. So let's get started. Our guest this month is Sarah Owings, and she's joined us in the past, and she's a seasoned educator with extensive experience in lots of different roles. She's been a kindergarten teacher, a consultant for in-home behavior cases, and an advisor to the training departments of Glendale Humane and Marin Humane Societies. She's a longtime contributor to both online and in-person conferences. Sarah is recognized for her innovative approaches to challenging behavioral problems and for her very compassionate and insightful style of coaching. Currently, Sarah is a member of our Clicker Expo faculty, where she practices what she calls brave learning. She's also a curriculum designer and instructor for CyberScent Online and Tromplo.com. Her educational offerings cover a wide range of topics, including clicker training approaches to nose work, which is one of the things that I've seen her talk about at Clicker Expo recently that I've really enjoyed, interspecies trust and communication, and reframing paradigms of control. Sarah lives on a 15-acre ranch in Petaluma, California, with her husband, Fred, 4 pet bovines, Pickle, Clover, Tati, and Ferdinand, who I think we're going to meet today, and a dove named Latte, and a tortoise named Bug, all sorts of wonderful animals. Welcome, Sarah, back to Live from the Ranch. Hello, Sarah. How are you doing? You are not audible to me right now. I don't know if you may have be on mute.
I muted just so that I wouldn't have any noise in your background.
Okay. Well, glad we figured that one out. I was afraid we had another technical glitch, which would have baffled us for a minute. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing very well. It's starting to heat up here in Petaluma, California. We've had a very temperate summer, and then right about now we're hitting 80, 90 degrees in the afternoon. So
Yeah. In fact, we were originally thinking of trying to do some live training with you and your cows right here on live from the ranch, but we began to realize that the temperature at this time of day is probably the worst possible time for your cows to work. So you went out early in the morning and did a few training sessions, and we're going to see them on video. And then I'm in the barn today, and I'm going to do some live training with Sparkle using protected contact a little bit later on in the broadcast. So that's our plan for today. And before we launch into seeing any of the training, I'm always fascinated to talk about the reasons people use protected contact. A lot of times when people think of protected contact, they think about, oh, that's what you use when you're working with an exotic, dangerous animal in a zoological organization. But you and I both work with protected contact outside of a zoological situation. So tell me what situations prompt you to consider protected contact as a form of working with an animal.
Right. So we have 4 bovines. We have 3 steers and 1 cow. They're huge. You're going to see Ferdinand is our largest. We're going to see him. So anyone that sees him is immediately going to be like, of course, protect. You don't want to go in there with that giant thing with horns. But they're actually quite docile, and I work full contact with them most of the time.
Right.
The reason I chose protected contact for Ferdinand is we are getting him ready for veterinary procedure, and the veterinarian will always be outside a barrier. Right. And so it's good for him to get used to that too. And Ferdinand, of all of our animals, is the most leery of strangers. So he's the most likely to just go to the opposite side of the corral if any new people approach. And what I've found that when there's a barrier, he feels more confident about standing next to strangers. And he can always leave. So the advantage is I really know that he's opting in. So when he comes, he's not being confined in any way. So I find that really helpful for him. And our other steer, he is showing some mild aggression towards strangers. So that looks like he kind of tries to headbutt, it's just, those are my 2 main reasons that I do.
And I think you touched on 2 of the things that I think are important. Almost everybody recognizes that working in protected contact is helpful if there's a risk to us as trainers or to whoever's involved. But I also think there is a certain comfort level that it can bring to the animal when people are coming up that maybe they don't know. And while they may not be an aggressive risk or a danger to the stranger coming up, it puts that animal at ease sometimes, having that barrier between them. And of course, for both of us, you and I both have worked with dogs. And I find that while dogs are so traditionally worked in free contact where you have total access, there are so many times when you're working with an aggressive dog, a really nervous dog, a dog in a shelter who you don't know much about its history. Sorry. If there was any doubt that we are live from the ranch, that puts that to rest right there. That was Sparkle, who's wanting to know why I'm looking at the screen and not paying attention to her. But I was just thinking about the fact that when we work with dogs that have an unknown history or that are potentially dangerous, working in protected contact can be a really great way to work with an animal that you haven't built a relationship with, or one who you feel like there's a risk to having. So I think there's just so many reasons why I think protected contact is something that I always hope people will consider as something to start training. Even with their very kind, gentle, loving animal, there's still reasons to potentially train protected contact.
And also it makes you train better sometimes, because you are limited in, you can't hold them, you can't get all in their space, you can't block, you have to actually shape a clean behavior, and they have to actually offer a behavior. And so I find it also just makes me a better trainer to work this way.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Adrienne, just wrote in and saying we're using protected contact with a bare-eyed cockatoo who would prefer my husband disappear and is willing to make that happen. And I want to ask all of our viewers, as we're going through the broadcast today, I would love to see if you use protected contact, and in what kind of situations do you use it? What kind of animal? For what reasons do you use it? Put it in the chat. We might bring it up and talk about that suggestion or that idea as well. And while we do that, I'd love to look at some of the videos that you've sent us of your training, and tell me a little bit about Ferdinand. And the very first video we're going to see is one of the early exposures to what particular procedure? Tell us a little bit about the video we're going to watch.
So I've been working on his injection procedure. I consider it a whole ritual or a routine. And I've been doing it in different components. So I can do the tactile desensitization actually when he's ruminating, when he's laying down. So that means I can apply different sensations, cold things, pokey things, and then I give him a big rub down with gloves that he loves. So that's separate. So that's a separate piece. I've been working on his operant behavior that I'm going for, which is a chin rest. That's a separate piece that I've been working on. This is the first time that I've put all together with a new person approaching him and pretending to be a veterinarian. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, before we look at the video, I want to make a comment. Sally, one of our viewers, wrote in protected contact ? I've never heard of that term. What does it mean? And I think we've bandied that term about, assuming that everyone knows what it means. But if you've never had to use it, it is totally understandable that it might be a term that's foreign to you. And protected contact is the type of training in which usually the animal is on one side of a barrier or fence and the trainer's on the other side of the barrier fence, essentially protecting you from the animal and the animal from you in a sense. And usually there are openings or barriers in the fence or in the barrier that allows you to make contact with the hooves or with the ear or with the rump or with the head, so that you can do training, but do it in a protected way. And it's one of the reasons why often the term is used when talking about working with aggressive animals or dangerous animals, or in a zoological facility when working with a large dangerous animal that you would never ever consider walking into their enclosure and working with them in free contact. Free contact is the way most of us work with our dogs. We can touch them, they can touch us, they can lick us, they can jump on us, we can hang all over them. There's no protection between you and the learner, while protected contact gives you some form of protection. And there's all sorts of gradations of protected contact where you're completely hands off, or when you are just protected from an animal trampling you or stomping on you. And I think when we show you some of the videos of the work and we watch some of the stuff that I'm going to do with Sparkle today, I think that'll make more sense. So this first video that we're going to see with Ferdinand, you're starting the injection training and getting him comfortable with that process. Is that correct?
Right. And what you're going to see are basically 4 short clips. And this is representative of how I work. The first one is exploratory. So I'm basically saying, we've never done this before. How do you feel about it? Do you want my food? Or is the structure set up? Is the environment gonna working for Ferdinand today? And so I give it about 2 minutes. And this session, I'd love the audience to watch. This session gets a tiny bit bumpy. I call it bumpy. And you're going to see a moment where Ferdinand gets a little frustrated and I get a little bit confused about my communication with my helper. And I am going to call my happy stationing cue, which is freebies. And Ferdinand knows that that cue means we're going to go to a feeding bucket. And I love having this piece, because when you get flustered and start dropping treats and you're not sure what your criteria is, you don't want your animal sitting there floundering. So this is a beautiful way to just concisely, happily start over. So the audience can watch. And the question I always ask in the exploratory session is, what refinements are needed for to make the next session smoother. So if the audience wants to watch for that, what they think I could do to help refine to make it so he's not frustrated the next time. So.
And before we do that, I'd love for everybody to watch for that. You mentioned that this is an exploratory training session. I love that term, but that may be another term that people haven't heard of before. What do you mean by exploratory training?
Well, I think I learned it from you a long time ago. And basically, I have a rough idea of what I want to try that day, but I don't actually know the real starting point that I need. And I actually don't even know the actual criteria that I need. So I just have a little bit of an idea. So the exploratory session is where I give myself, and I will keep it really short, 2 minutes to just try it out. And when I try it out, I'm looking for refinements. I'm saying, oh, he didn't take this food in this position. And so that's what I'm doing. And then I get that information and then I apply it to the next session.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that's a great description of it. I think of exploratory training as that chance to try out a setup, try out props, see how my animal responds, and then I can walk away and make some decisions about, okay, how can I make that session better? What could I do the next time? What adjustments need to be made? And And I guess you could argue that aren't all sessions exploratory training in that way. They are, but in many cases, when I'm starting with a new project, there are probably a lot of things that I haven't perfected yet. And so exploratory training just helps me remember that's the whole point of the session, is to find ways of making it better, making it more accessible to my learner. And I think that's what you're trying to do here, sort of discover what Ferdinand likes, what concerns him, what adjustments need to happen before you continue to do more training.
I knew that he was very familiar with the pattern of finish eating at his bucket and then come to the chin rest. He and I'd work on that all the time. So the cool part about this is, because I know what he looks like when he's completely comfortable, I can tell the difference when he's frustrated or he's not comfortable. But this is the first time we're trying to connect the chin rest with a person approaching him. So like a start button is when his chin goes down, the person's going to approach him. And I was asking him, does this even compute for you? Is it scary? Right. So that's what I'm doing here.
All right. Well, Sarah and I are going to just watch the video. We won't talk during the video, and we'll discuss it after the video plays. So let's go ahead and start that first video and watch that introduction to injection training, that exploratory training session.
Okay. I don't know if I need to mark him really. All right. When he puts his chin down, go ahead and approach. Okay. And just stand. And back away. And approach. And put your hand on the fence. Oops, go back. Okay, come back. Go ahead. He wants his food right away. I'll feed him faster. Okay, approach. It's an interesting dilemma. Oops. Oh my goodness. I'm not getting the food in the mouth very well. Okay, freebies. Let's do his do-over. There. That felt a little fussy.
All right. So I know some of you probably had some intermittent connection issues with that. There was a lot of bandwidth being taken up by that video, but very interesting session watching Ferdy look at you, watching Fred approach. Tell me a little bit what you saw, how you felt about that session after it was over.
Well, definitely I considered it to be, I call bumpy. And I don't know if the audience picked up on. So the dilemma for me there was this is a perfect example of the trainer has this sort of big idea in their head, and the animal says, "Can you just pay me on time, please?" Like, it's simpler for him than I thought it would be. I was thinking start button. He approaches. Oh, you moved your head. You should move back. But by the time we did all that, the delay in feeding was frustrating.
Right.
So, and that was an interesting quandary I have, because I do continually feed him. Is am I covering up his start button, right? Am I covering that up with this feed? But what I do in the next session is I'm going to change my criteria a little bit for what he looks like when he's comfortable. So Ken just went away. So there we go. There he's back again.
But I am going to ask Juliana to join us now as well, because I think both of us are experiencing a little bit of internet connectivity problems. And so between the three of us, one of us will probably maintain connectivity there. So Juliana, what did you see in that session? Did you have any questions for Sarah about it?
First of all, Sarah, I could literally cry looking at the kindness that you're giving this cow. Like, that was so beautiful to watch. Just like, training logistics aside, it was so incredible. And I thought it was a really good example of exactly like you said, like, we have this plan, and specifically communicating to your other human, which you had said initially was going to be that you realized that was a challenge, but it feels so straightforward. Yeah, like, move at this point, and then you're like, no, wait, go, leave. Okay, come back. Okay, leave. Okay. We forget, and it reminds us how important it is for the training to be as solid as possible before we start adding these variables. We think, oh, it's just like adding a person standing there. Yeah, but then our brain is gone. Our animal learner is confused. Our other human helper is trying so hard to follow our instructions. And so you really actually did set yourself up for success by presenting that initial session as an exploratory session. So I feel like that also reduces our expectations and can prevent us from feeling like, oh my gosh, that didn't go well. That was so bad. It's like, no, I was just exploring, and yeah, it didn't go the way I wanted to. So let me make some changes.
I always expect first sessions to feel a little bit like that.
Yeah, clunky.
And what I learned is I don't work with people very often. I work by myself. So I'm so focused on the animal that I don't even know English words now. Like, what? I'm supposed to talk to you? Like, and I had to watch him, and it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think a lot of people forget the fact that bringing that extra person in completely changes the picture and completely can make it different, not just for your animal, but for you as well. And so that's where getting comfortable with what are the words you're going to be using to tell your helper to come closer, to touch, to do whatever is really helpful. So that was great. I tell you what, let's take our first just short break, and then we'll come back and we'll watch the second training session with Ferdinand, and then we'll talk about what adjustments you made before we start. So let's just take a quick commercial break. Just be away for just a minute. I'm not leaving at all. I want to tell you a little bit about KPA. That's the Karen Pryor Academy. At Karen Pryor Academy, you can build your skills and knowledge by enrolling in any of our on-demand courses, or take the next step in your animal training career by applying to our professional certification program with in-person or fully virtual workshops. And you can learn more about that at KarenPryorAcademy.com. So, having said that, let's bring you back on, Sarah, and tell me the kind of adjustments that you made as you went into your second.
And you just froze up a little bit, but can people still hear me? Because I can answer that question while we get you back. We're good? Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Yep.
So I don't know if the audience picked up on it, but the main thing I changed was to speed up the rate of feeding.
Mm-hmm.
So what Ferdinand's really expecting is as soon as that chin goes down, he wants the food to start. So I needed to look at other things to tell me if he was actually comfortable. So what I'm looking for, is he eating like he normally does? Is he side-eyeing, my helper? Is he Is he shifting his weight back? Is he slow? One of the biggest tells is how fast does he finish his station eat and then come to the chin rest. I know what that speed is. I mean, he's not a very fast guy, but if he comes in a very easygoing way, then I can tell. And the other change is I'm going to actually have my helper right there from the beginning. So instead of approaching, I figured it's not the approach that's the issue, it's the speed of the that delay of him coming is too long. So that's what I changed. And I like that because when Ferdinand comes to put his chin rest, Fred is already there.
He's still up to it, right?
And so Ferdinand can see what he's actually coming into. So that was a little bit easier for him, I think, than a complicated duration behavior. So that's what I changed.
So let's watch the second session, and I think it'll be interesting to see.
Nope.
We can go ahead and we'll start the video. Rachel.
Okay. Keep losing. So just come stand here now. So when he comes over here, he's signing in to the whole picture. You know what I mean? And then we'll do, when the chin goes down, you can touch his neck and I'll flick you. If he really deliberately kind of looks at you or shifts away, he'll move away. You put his chin down. Looking at you a little bit. Okay, go ahead and touch him. Beautiful. Okay, walk away for a second. Right there, that's good. Okay, chin down approach. Hand on the thing. See how it feels. Seems good. Okay, I'm gonna put head, chin down, touch. Good. That felt like good timing. Okay, back up. So we're doing else two, like chin down approach and then chin down touch. All right, approach. This time kind of do a little tactile with your finger, like just,
Now?
Not quite. Now. Tiny little pinches. Okay, back up. And freebies. That felt better. It's such a matter of timing, right?
Oh, that was great. It was wonderful to see that, Sarah. One of the things I really noticed in that clip that I hadn't noticed before was how Ferdinand's eyes switch and look over at your helper as he approaches and then refocuses back on you. It's kind of a subtle thing, but it's very clear that Ferdy is aware.
Yes.
Yeah. I noticed in that session, Sarah, that you did start having your helper then walk away and come back. So you felt like the approach is still an important thing to add into the training, even though you eliminated it at the beginning.
True. I think in the moment I just told myself, I kind of was going with what felt right. So what felt right is 2 uses of the chin rest. So chin rest down, he comes over and I feed right away. And then I want to ask him another question. Can he touch you now? Right? So by delay, I feed a little bit off the chin rest and gives him a chance to reoffer it. The first time the animal experiences that, they don't really know that's going to be the consequence.
Right.
Right? I watched the video. I see Ferdinand shifting back slightly on that one. So, and when I look at it again, I think I could have had my helper stop the touching a little sooner. But the real gauge, the real test of this is how does he offer the chin rest the next time?
Yeah.
And he's really solid with his, that's how he always does it. He kind of turns his head sideways and then smushes his head down like that. So that told me that he wasn't too uncomfortable with what we were doing. So I just kept that pattern. I was trying not to change it too many times on him.
And I think that value of being able to watch a video back and see those little things like weight shift, etc., just indicating maybe even the mildest level of discomfort. But again, that's also the value of being in protected contact, because at least the comfort isn't, his space isn't being violated too badly, because he does have the barrier between him and the helper. So I thought that was really, really good. I want to remind our viewers that if you have questions about anything that you're seeing, don't hesitate to put those in the chat window and we'll get around to your questions. Juliana will be paying attention to that and we'll bring those to our attention a little bit later on. Sarah, should we move on to the third video and tell us a little bit about what we'll see in that video?
Sure. So we're going to repeat that pattern again, only now I'm just going to add one more element, which is the helper is going to put, it's called a shot blocker. And it's a little plastic thing with little barbs. It's not sharp, but it's almost like a curry comb. And when you push that on the neck and you put a needle in, it diffuses the sensation. So Ferdinand's had a lot of practice with me putting this thing on him all over, because he loves brushing. So that's what we're going to do, is just have Fred add that piece. So the one thing I'd love the audience to look at is I'm going to choose to end this session early. I was going to go for 3 reps and I end at 2, and it's going well. So it'd be interesting what the audience thinks of, like, why I did that.
Great. Let's take a look at that video now.
Same thing. You can be a tiny bit closer, just because I don't think you approaching is bothering him at all. All right. Chin down, hands on the fence. Chin down. I'm going to give him a cue he knows. It's called little pinch. Little pinch. Little pinch. And then that's it. Nice. Okay. Take it away. That did not seem to phase him at all. That was great. Okay, go ahead. Do it again. Little pinch. Hard to reach there, huh? That's so good. Okay. One more. Actually, I'm gonna give him one more treat. I'm gonna do a freebies. I'm gonna have you do a little bit of a needle next time. Freebies. He's really doing fine.
Yep.
All right. That looks great. One of the things I also think is great about protected contact is that often people forget that the cow is free to move away if he wants to. And if there was any discomfort, you'd often see when he touched there, he has the ability to move his neck away or actually completely walk away. And he doesn't do that. And that's a really good sign. I think I thought that was excellent. We also had, I was going to say, one of the viewers actually answered your question is, why do you think I moved away then? And she says, because it's great to quit while you're ahead rather than risk pushing them beyond their comfort.
Definitely. Sometimes you get stuck trying to get ahead and then you go too long because you're not ahead to begin with. So you got to be careful that, like the first session, it was great to stop when I was not ahead. Right? Because you don't want to keep floundering. But in this case, he had already done a lot of reps, right? This is a 3rd session. he's a big guy, he gets tired, and he's met criteria exactly the way I wanted on both reps. So I didn't think he needed a third rep, and I wanted to actually raise criteria for the last session.
And I commend you for doing that. Otherwise you get into what I often refer to as the greedy trainer syndrome. It's going so well, you want to do it one more time, and then it goes well again. You go, oh, I want to do it one more time, and then at some point you push it past their comfort level, and then it doesn't go well, and then you're disappointed with yourself for not having quit while you were ahead. And I think you showed a lot of good self-discipline there. That's the mark of a good trainer.
It's nice to have a happy freebies. See, even if I'm feeling like I'm terrible, I can't say that cue in a way, and it makes him happy. So it's great. It's a good thing to have, to train ahead of time.
Oh, that's so very true. I would love to move to the next video and just sort of see how far you made it. Is there anything special we should be looking for on this fourth video?
You're going to see the full sequence. So this is just like a real injection. We're using a blunt needle, so it's not going to be too painful. So you're going to see just the whole thing. The thing to look for are all the environmental cues that kind of ask him the question, are you okay with this? Can we continue? Right. Because there's actually quite a lot of environmental cues. Even though his duration behavior is not like super solid, there are a lot of times we're going, can we keep going?
Right.
So.
All right, great. Let's take a look and see how Ferdinand does and see how Sarah does, which I'm sure you'll do great.
That we've got. This one. And he's
poke out a little bit.
Yeah, right. So same routine. Hands, chin down, little poke. Put that thing on.
Put that thing on.
If he looks good, just take the little blunted needle, just do a small poke, and then stop. So don't just keep poking, just do a poke and stop.
Got
it. This will be the end. And he's had that sensation before, he knows. All right, approach. Boy. Hands on the thing. Okay. And touch his chin. Nope. All right, got a funny bite. It's got a funny bite. Hold on. Okay. Little poke. Good. Nice. And keep a steady pressure with that. And then go ahead with your needle. Good. Pressure and stop. Nice. Beautiful. Good boy. Now let's see if he signs back in for another round of that. Now he knows what you're going to do. So we'll see if he offers his chin again. Yep. Little poke. Boy.
Needle.
Needle. Good. Good boy.
5. Okay.
Okay. All done. Yay. Birdie's dropping all the tricks on my head. And the slobber. Oh, that's so good. All right, go ahead and back up, Fred. Good boy. Freebies. That's the closest he's ever had.
Here's somebody else giving him an injection.
Someone else giving him an injection. That is pretty awesome. I am good with that.
That was so lovely and impressive.
Yeah. Your enthusiasm. And I think it's fun because we're getting to watch a species that many of us haven't worked with, and seeing that a big cow standing there participating in a session with those big horns sticking out and doing it comfortably. I think it was wonderful. I want to remind you that if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box. We'll come back right after this next break and take those questions, and Juliana and I will continue asking questions of Sarah about how she felt that particular session went. But I want to take a quick break just to talk about some of the wonderful events that we have coming up in the Karen Pryor Clicker training community. If you're wanting to take your training to the next level, we've got you covered with a variety of events. Not the least of which is our upcoming Clicker Expo Live in January, or in person in March in Clicker Expo New York, which is in Westchester County, where you can get immersed in a world of learning, connection, and inspiration. As Juliana brought up at the beginning of the broadcast, we just announced our programs yesterday. We're very excited about the fact that in the virtual expo, we have a whole track on emerging new trends in the field with lots of new content. And in our in-person expo, we have several brand new speakers that I'm really looking forward to introducing to our community of trainers. And early bird registration opens next week, so don't forget to look into that. And if hands-on small group training is your style, you can always visit me here at the ranch in Graham, Washington, at the foothills of Mount Rainier. It's kind of where it all comes together, where we offer a variety of classes, training with the resident animals like Sparkle, who you've heard in the background today, and it's in a really beautiful setting. You can learn more about all of these events by going to clickertraining.com. But let's continue our learning right now and talk a little bit more about that session. It was a great session. It was really kind of fun to see you go from the very first exploratory training session and show some of the progress over the course of those 4 sessions. Juliana, did you have specific questions or things that you noticed that you'd like to ask about? Or maybe there's some questions from our viewers.
I have so many thoughts and observations and questions. One, I feel like it's actually crazy that the first video we saw and it was all the same day, right? Like it was all like one after, like it's crazy. And it speaks to how when you have the really solid foundation skills, yes, things might fall apart briefly, but then they can so quickly come back together to help you once you get back on track. I also noticed the value of your freebies, which cued taking a break. And I love breaks. I think they're an integral part. They're just as important almost as the actual training, and how helpful it was that you gave yourself a long extended break, because, you know, if he had started coming back and was ready to opt into the session before you were ready, I mean, and you took that valuable time to rehearse with your human learner, to go over things again. There's so much important thinking and decision making and troubleshooting that happens during those breaks. And I don't think people value them or integrate them enough into training.
That's why I have this structure.
Yes.
That it just forces me to do that. So it really, really helps, because my brain, if I just trained nonstop, I would just go so many rabbit holes, and by the end I wouldn't even know what I was doing anymore.
Of course.
It was such a well thought out session, the series of sessions, and a well planned out session. I love the fact that in our comments, somebody made a point to say, thank you, Fred, for being such a great helper. So you can tell
great.
Fred that he was appreciated.
And I will say one thing, Fred is a little bit more familiar to Ferdy than most people. I've done this with a few total strangers, and we just reduce criteria, so just touching. But with Fred, I felt like we could do all the way through to a blunt needle.
Yeah.
That's great. That's excellent. You know, but before we run out of time, I wanted to show both of you some new work that we're doing here at the ranch with our animals. We have a class coming up soon that's focused on protected contact, because oftentimes when people get into working around animals that they're afraid of, that are skittish or dangerous, they are a bit lost at where to begin with an animal that they are in the same space as, that they're not even sure of where to start. And we often find a lot of horse trainers especially have concerns just because as you're using food as reinforcers, the horse or the donkey wants to come right into your space, and it can be a little bit intimidating, and protected contact gives you the ability to do that. And we've just started introducing protected contact to some of our animals. I'm going to change the viewpoint of your screen there. Hopefully you can still hear me. What we've done here at the ranch is created an ability for us to work in protected contact. And I'm going to be using a target with Sparkle as the animal that you see on the other side of the fence. And the target can be a way to get an animal to touch something. But if I don't want to touch her with my hands, it gives me a form of protection. In fact, today I'm going to be using the Terry Ryan Click Stick, which we're really proud at Care Prior Clicker Training because it was recently voted one of the best training products of the year. So if you want to find out more, you can use the QR code right there. I use them all the time because it's got a target and a clicker embedded into it, so I could click without having to have a second or third thing in my hand. And then one of the inventions we came up with is we cut a space in our fence that gives, as you can see, Sparkle there, the ability to come over the rail and touch the clicker. And I'm going to use, just to be in true protected contact style, I'm going to put some pellets into a cup, allowing her to eat. That way, I reduce the risk of being bitten because she's going to be able to eat right out of the cup. And then I can use my target to get her to move to different locations. There again, she touched it. And a lot of times when I start working people in protected contact, it really is just about being able to work with the animal close up, but not have you worry at all about them invading your space. And you can work very comfortably without the animal getting too close to you, stepping on you, biting you. And when I work in protected contact, I tend to like to not feed with my hand at all, just so that the animal is getting used to eating out of a cup, and it reduces the likelihood of me actually getting bitten. And then my goal is, as I do that more often, while I'm feeding the animal, I'll get the animal comfortable with being touched with my other hand. And by doing that, it allows me eventually to get to the eye area, put drops in the eye, ointment in the ears, or you can see if the donkey moves back like she did there, that maybe I'm moving too fast. And so there's a need to slow down a little bit and make sure she's really comfortable with that. And this is just the way I get started in protected contact. It was obvious to me as you were working with Ferdinand, Sarah, that Ferdinand has gotten really comfortable with your hands and stuff being in the face. But this is a new situation for Sparkle, is just working in a place where she can get reinforced and she can get used to seeing my hand come close to her without any kind of consequence other than just getting access to some of the treats. And then, of course, one of the things we work toward is not only putting ointment in the eyes or putting things in the ears, but also eventually manipulating her so that we can do a vaccine injection on the side right here into her muscle, which can be really, really helpful. And I just wanted to bring Sparkle out because I like Sparkle. She's one of the animals that I work with a lot, but it's also as an opportunity for me to talk about other aspects of protected contact training, why I think it's so helpful, and giving us a chance to watch some live training going on, even though there's not a lot of things happening right here with Sparkle. Sparkle always gets excited when I'm in here talking to people on the internet, and so I wanted her to have a chance to come out here.
Well, I love the rail because you can be very clear, when you're working and when you're not, because
exactly.
you don't have a PD station. Yeah.
Like if I close the rail, it either means the session is over or that I'm going to work her in some other kind of a format. And because she's not really an animal that needs to be in protected contact, I actually can feed her with my hands, and she's quite good at that. But when I'm training protected contact, I often don't have people doing that. But you're right, when I open the gate like that, it's sort of a way of saying, come on in. And if she sticks her head over the top, a lot like Ferdinand did with the chin rest, it's not a purposely trained chin rest, but it is where she puts her head over. And believe me, if she didn't want to participate, she would just move her head over to the other side. And then I respect that and go, okay, we won't continue with the session unless you just decide to stay there. And if you're going to stay there, we'll go ahead and do that. So
I like that because you can definitely build a start button very organically just by observing. So you know, you don't always have to train these very elaborate, you know, behaviors. You can just build a loop like you're doing. And if she just sticks her head over eagerly, you can start there. So I like that.
Hey, and Sarah, maybe you could explain, you brought up the term start button before. You and I know what that means. I use it all the time. I hear people use it all the time. But for those people who may have never heard of a start button, can you explain what you mean by a start button and why that's helpful?
Well, definitely, it's the idea that the animal can do a behavior, and the consequence of that behavior initiates the rest of the loop. So often we do, you know, touch target, that makes click and feed, but a start button for husbandry, as you saw with Ferdinand, was push your chin, it's gonna have, someone's gonna touch you. And once you build the loop, you can see by how the animal offers the behavior if they're actually comfortable. Either they won't offer it at all, or they'll offer it hesitantly, or, you know, but you can do it with a simple thing, like just how fast does the animal put their head over the fence. The trick is you got to have to move her back again somehow so she can offer it again, because it's the repetition that helps you form those.
Absolutely. And that was probably one of the advantages of me closing the gate and starting it again to see if she wanted to come back and participate in that session.
Right. Now Ferdinand's funny. When I do the tactile work with the shot blocker, he'll be laying down. So he's not offering his chin rest and he's not eating food. He works for the grooming. And so I was trying to figure out what start button he could have when he's laying down. And what he'll do is, if I stop grooming, he'll stretch his head up like this. And that basically means groom me some more. And then once I had that, I could include a little pinch, put the shot blocker on, groom him, stop, head lift, little pinch, and now I have a loop. And it just was very organic. He was just laying around and I was just brushing him. So you can find these all the time. Animals are always doing them.
That's great. Yeah. Excellent. Julianne, have there been any questions come in from any of our viewers that we can answer before we run out of time?
Yes, and this speaks to what you were just talking about with start buttons. Dog on Special is asking, Sarah, I noticed you raise your hand at the end of a repetition when you were doing the chin rest with Ferdinand. Is that a cue to end the chin rest?
That's a great observation. So you probably noticed that I would feed in position and then feed out of position. So I wasn't actually like raising my hand like a cue, but I wanted to put him in a position where he could offer it again. And Ferdinand's really big. So asking him to like do a lot of movement is really challenging for him. So just lifting his head up. So it acted like a release cue, but it was a very simple one.
Excellent.
The opportunity to offer it again.
Right.
Lovely. And this is a quick one for Ken. Where did you get that cup that you were feeding Sparkle with?
It's interesting. I use a lot of cups of various sizes and types. And I actually get them. They're available at a store called Daiso, which is sort of a Japanese dollar store, but they're located all over the place, and they're super cheap. You get them for less than $1, and I have dozens and dozens of these, which allow people that are afraid to feed with their hand to just put the food in a cup, and it's a wide enough opening that the animal can easily get its nose in there and get the food, but you're not worried about the animal biting you. Now, we've taught the animals to take our food gently, but if you're familiar with donkeys and horses, they have very formidable teeth, and they definitely could bite if you don't feed them properly. You don't have to use the cup, but that's why we use the cup, especially if we're working in protected contact. That gives us that extra sense of protection.
And I don't know if you noticed with Ferdinand, but the issue is drool. Yeah. So by the time I'm done, it's like I have a towel there, but I did try to throw food in a bucket hanging on and he had trouble getting discrete reps. So I found that hand feeding him did work better, but there's a lot of drool involved.
And if people haven't worked with a dog or an animal that drools a lot, it isn't even an issue. You may not mind the drool, but it makes your food get stuck together, and it makes it very difficult to cleanly reinforce. And so there's always the need for a drool rag to clean your hands off with, and it can really be problematic. That's for sure.
So I have another question about protected contact in general. One behavior that both of you were reinforcing with your animals was what we might label like a stationary behavior, standing in front of you and not coming close to you, and not what we would also label as mugging you, and all those unsafe behaviors we associate with large animals being around food. For those of you who are watching who work with dogs, one area where protected contact is something that you either encounter or you use is in animal shelters, and dogs who are either in quarantine and can't be taken out, or dogs who are, for whatever reason, you can't take the dog out of the kennel, or you want to get really a few minutes in here, a few minutes in there, and you don't have the time to take the animal in and out, even cats too. What are some other behavior ideas that you have that you could teach or capture or reinforce when there's a barrier between you and a dog or a cat? Any ideas for those watching?
Well, I can tell you a couple. Go ahead. Go ahead. You go first, Sarah.
For shelter dogs, the number one behavior that I love is standing still, because usually there's a lot of frenetic, worried movement or hitting the barriers or whatever. So I often will just capture feet still as my starting point. So that's a good one.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I like the stationary standing still so that they're paying attention. And then I will break that up simply by moving over a couple of feet and having the animal move to where I am, and then be stationary again, and then feed. And then I move back over again, and they move with me. And it does a couple of things. It teaches them to pay attention to me, but it also teaches them that when they get to where I am, that they should stay stationary, and then the reinforcement will come. And then I often add little things like a target where I'll have them follow. I may stay still, but I might move the target to one place or another. And of course, with the click stick, I can click at the same time. I don't usually introduce a clicker to a brand new animal right away until I see that they really are engaged in the eating and really paying attention. But for me, it's pay attention to me, follow me wherever I go, and then maybe I'll add other things like following a target and other things to vary the session up a bit.
I love it.
That brings up you might have noticed I'm not using a clicker in the Ferdinand session because I didn't feel like it was necessary. I have used the clicker to capture that chin down, but for what we were doing there, as soon as I started, I realized that just the feeding was enough of a click. There was no real, I wasn't counting 5-second duration click. There was no need for it. So, and if he looked perfectly clear with that, so it worked fine.
And a lot of times, especially for longer duration behaviors like that, where the animal is resting in a particular position, the click can actually disrupt the flow of that, because the animal goes, oh, I'm going to get reinforced, and they completely get out of position. But with the way you did it, Sarah, you were continually letting the animal know that he was doing well by feeding him, but you didn't interrupt the chin rest behavior or the behavior of staying in place for the medical procedure.
Yes, so it worked for that. It worked for that. I also love to use a clicker for duration because of the clean. It's so clean. There's an end point. But for Ferdinand, he's a grazing animal. He just wants to eat continuously.
No, I absolutely agree. Hey, I'm gonna take one more quick break, and then we'll come back and sort of wrap up our discussion. It's hard for me to believe that the hour is almost over, but I wanted to take just a few minutes to tell everybody a little bit about our live classes. KPA offers our virtual classes, feature real-time coaching and training. Sorry. I'd like to think that's Sparkle's way of saying that she endorses those virtual classes, but I can't be sure. But they are one of a real-time coaching and training from exceptional instructors. Most classes last 4 to 6 weeks. They meet weekly on Zoom and include a video-based curriculum, online discussion group, and you can also participate in an on-demand format which with access to the recordings and materials for an entire year. So see what's new this month or subscribe to learn about new classes and savings at KarenPryerAcademy.com. Well, I wanted to bring Sarah and Juliana back just one last time to say I loved having the opportunity to watch you work with your cows. I also love the opportunity to be able to talk about protected contact. We've had some wonderful participation from our viewers who were clearly, they didn't have a lot of questions, but they had a lot of great comments about why they think protected contact is beneficial and some of the things that they loved about watching your session with Ferdy. I thought that was really, really good. I'm so glad you joined us again on Live from the Ranch, Sarah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are out of time, so I'm going to say goodbye to Sarah. I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. I want to thank you so much for coming up, and I want to tell you about next month's broadcast. We have a new guest on Live from the Ranch. Their name is Liza Rader, and we're going to be talking about retrievals. And while it seems like a really simple topic, retrieval, there's so much to a good retrieval, and breaking it down and understanding how to use it, whether you're using it in the hunting world or you're using it in obedience training or you're using it just for yourself to get your dog to retrieve a toy. All of that will be talked about in our episode on September 4th. I hope you'll join us then. Also, just a reminder to everybody that we're always interested in hearing from you. If you have comments or suggestions about our Live from the Ranch broadcast, you can go to our website and go to the clickertraining.com live, and there you can fill out a form, share comments, suggestions, training videos that you'd like us to share. All of us here at the Live from the Ranch team will see your submissions and we'll incorporate that into a future broadcast. And finally, before we go, I just want to remind you all of our special offers that we talked about during the broadcast today: how to become a certified dog trainer through KPA, upcoming events, most notably things going on at the ranch, or Clicker Expo. Early bird registration starts next week for both the virtual Clicker Expo in January and the in-person expo in New York in March. And of course, we want to remind you about all of KPA's live virtual classes. And having said all of that, it was wonderful having Sarah here. It's always a pleasure having Juliana with us as well as our co-host. I want to thank you for joining us on Live from the Ranch. We'll see you next month. Happy training, everybody. Bye-bye.